Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen. Good morning, everybody. This is Markus Vogt from aream. A very warm welcome from Düsseldorf. I'm happy that you are joining our webinar today, where we are going to discuss clean tech investment opportunities. And with me today are Anat and Boaz from Israel. Good morning to you both. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Of course I can do. So we have a fabulous morning here in Düsseldorf. How is it in Israel, Anat?
Today is very rainy. I mean, very rainy is relative term, because now the sun is going out.
I would like to invite you with a small poll we've prepared. Maybe you at the audience are willing to give us your view on the few statements we have prepared for you. So does it start? Start the poll. I have first to choose it. So now I'm able to. So maybe you choose where you feel more comfortable with. It's regarding the energy. Obviously, if aream is talking about the future, it's always something to do with the renewables. And let's see how the poll develops. Okay, I assume we have a clear favorite by now. So it's not like what we've seen in the presidential elections US. So it seems that we are really having a clear outcome in this regard. Yes, of course, the future of the energy will be renewable, and we at aream are playing an important role in that, and we see a tremendous change in the energy sector for the next decade, and we are really fascinated about the major changes we see in the market by now, because what is happening right now is that there's an important change in the economics. Economics, especially, it means that sustainability is only sustainable if you really have an economical impact, not only a sustainable impact. And maybe many people in the past criticized, especially the renewable energy sector, that it's highly subsidized. And we are at the situation right now that we as aream have started to develop a huge amount of solar plants, because there are no subsidies needed anymore. And this is really a huge game changer for the whole industry. But to realize that, we really need to rely also on other clean tech areas which will support this tremendous change in the overall economy for our world. And this is why I'm happy to have Anat and Boaz with me. And let me first elaborate a little bit about what we think if we talk about clean tech. There is a slide, and it's interesting to see that this slide is now developed rather 7-8 years ago, and we've discussed it internally hours and hours if it makes sense to add something, and it still gives a really good picture about the whole clean tech universe and which areas one can focus on. And it's interesting that we see so many developments in so many different areas within this sector that makes sense to invest in, that we are curious, especially learned today, of two really super experienced market participants in this area. But let me first just give you a quick overview about aream. So aream, as an investment manager, is mainly focused on 4 business sectors. We do development investments, we do investments in renewable energies, we develop projects, we of course structure equity and mezzanine financing for our clients. And the whole thing about renewable is not only the production, but also a lot of with distribution, so grid stability. It has more and more to do with storage technology. And on the other hand, it's more and more important to have a good understanding of the electricity market and the needs also of the different kinds of electricity consumers to produce products that are really helpful for them. And especially Boas will also tell us a little bit about technologies which will support the grid stability within in the net. And in addition to that, we as aream have started to invest in certain sectors of the CleanTech universe. We are financing energy savings initiatives with industrial clients. We've invested into artificial intelligence technology, have invested into vehicle charging infrastructure, and have collected over the last 10 years a lot of experience within this sector. Around 1.5 billion of investments were done by us. We have accumulated about 50 years of experience within our network with our partners, and produced more than 1 billion of kilowatt hours of electricity. So it's easy for us to, let's say, produce the energy consumption of a city like Würzburg, for example. So if it comes to what are the returns you can invest, it's also in the renewable and the clean tech area the same. The market has become so mature that you are able to invest really totally risk adverse in operating long-term assets with low returns, or you can really invest into development, and you can invest in growth in promising companies on a shorter term, where you are able to achieve returns of more than 10, sometimes more than 15%. We as aream are active in most of the European countries, in some areas with joint venture partners. We've just formed a joint venture for Eastern Europe developments. We're active in the UK and also in the Nordics. And of course, our main countries are France, Benelux, Germany, Spain, Portugal, and nevertheless Italy, where we really had one of our first developments over within the last 15 years. Within our plant portfolio, the return of the plants is more than 8% on equity over the last 10 years. I guess now is a good point that I introduce Anat to you. Maybe Anat, you tell us a little bit first of you and your career, because it's really exciting to hear about.
Okay, so thank you, Marcus, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Do you hear me well, by the way? Am I speaking okay? Okay, so yeah, so I think my career has been a mirror of the development of Israel as now it is known as startup nation. So it was always Israel has always invested and saw technology as something central to its economic and social development, but in the past 20 years, it was branded as startup nation. So I don't know who in the audience has read the book, which is fascinating, by the way, but actually it really depicts the story of my career. After high school, you know, we all go to military service. So I served at one of the elite intelligence units. I can't even say the name because we were always taught that it's so secret, but now all the analysts in Wall Street, they know the name and they put it down in their publications. So it's the 8200 intelligence unit. And then after military service, I studied economics and business, and I started in a regular financial career, but somewhere in the late 90s, I was working for US-based investment banking firms, like which were technologically oriented. It was on the wave of, you know, the Nasdaq technological listings of the late 90s. So we started sourcing young technological companies in Israel to IPO on Nasdaq. So we really did, you know, the checkpoints and the Teledatas and the Galileos of the world. Back then it was a lot about the internet and about communications. And that's how Israel became, I think, the second largest group of foreign companies traded on Nasdaq. And after I did that for a while, I realized that a lot of these startups need guidance and professional investments from very early stages. So in the early 2000s, I founded a company called Xenia Venture Capital, which actually started as a technological incubator backed by a very interesting program by the Israeli Innovation Authority, the government, which brought financial leverage for investors, professional investors, to invest in seed stage high-tech startups. So over the years, I managed Xenia Venture Capital for over 17 years and took it public on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And over the years, we invested in something like 25 companies, all from seed and pre-seed stage in the areas of high-tech and medical devices and pharma. And these companies reached cumulative valuations of almost $2 billion with companies acquired by international large companies and listed on the Nasdaq. So after 17 very exciting years of that, I reached Capital Nature, which was in the same stage, a technological incubator concentrating on renewable energy that started out in the desert in the south of Israel, just near Eilat, and had a very interesting portfolio, which we will talk about a little bit later, all seeded from really pre-seed. Some of the projects just had, you know, presentation. CleanTech, which we will listen to just in a moment. I knew the founder. He came from the same elite unit for, you know, over 20 years ago. And I found this portfolio that really was on the verge of commercialization. And I'm proud to say that in the past 2 years that I'm here, we have really, with some of the companies, brought them to traction of products in the market, pilots, all with groundbreaking technologies.
So really interesting. Maybe you could explain a bit about the Israeli market. Which trends see you by now? What's happening in the Israeli seed and earlier stage environment in the investment universe?
Yeah, so you know, the Israeli universe of startups is always very vibrant, very active, very exciting. I always say that, you know, 20 years ago, I used to know most of the startups. I used to know them, you know, to meet them, to know what's going on. And today the number is so large that I can't even possibly follow all these great companies that are being formed. I know that from data from the Innovation Authority that we have every year something like between 500 startups, and all in all, the number is thousands. Of course, not all of them succeed, but a lot of them do. And as this ecosystem is developing, you see all the multinationals, all the Fortune 500 companies, the companies from Europe, China, all over the world. They are based here. Some of them have their own representatives sourcing startups and technologies that interest them, and some do affiliations with local parties here, and some do both. So yeah, the ecosystem is very, very vibrant. In the clean tech sector specifically, I can tell you that it was a sector that, you know better than I, it has gone some ups and downs and changes. So when Capital Nature was founded 8 years ago, it was on the verge of, you know, the rise of solar panels and renewable energy. but more on the project side. And ever since then, like I said, many large companies are stationed here, like EDF and Enel, and most of the large power companies in Europe and in the Far East, as well as the oil and gas industry from Texas. So they're all here, Chevron and Exxon and British Petroleum, of course. So this sector has gone some like a downturn in the past 5 years, but in the past 2 years, we see again an upturn. We in Capital Nature only in the last quarter saw 200 new deals, new startups. As it's an immense number, all with unique technologies aiming to solve different parts of the chart that you showed just now in your presentation, the first mapping of the CleanTech universe. So it's really across all these sectors, and yeah, it's very exciting. We're very enthusiastic about it.
And
still.
On the other hand, if I see how relaxed your office stock is in the back, so it seems to be a relaxed atmosphere in your office. So
Yeah.
may I ask the audience if there are questions? You can use the Fragen box to type it, and maybe we are able to answer them while we're discussing with Anat and Boaz. And before we come to Boaz, what is your strategy? How do you, Anat, with your team, identify potential winners if you consider investing in a new company? And then we come to Boaz and his company. He is for sure one of your selected winners.
Yeah, so we're a small team, very agile, we try to be very efficient. We try to really, in every sector that we check, we try to really map the universe. So now, for example, we're looking at battery technologies, and we just invested in a new technology that came out from the Tel Aviv University. But in order to do that, it's a new company in our portfolio. So in order to do that, we really look at the spectrum, and luckily here in Israel, we do have other companies to compare to. So just as an example, in the battery sector, at the moment, we're looking seriously at 5 or 6 different companies. So now, of course, we won't invest in all of them, but basically what we're looking for is, first of all, a basis for a groundbreaking technology with some kind of a proof of concept, even if it's early stage. So it's not in a commercialization stage yet, but it's, for example, the technology that came out of the Tel Aviv University was tested, so it has a lab proof of concept. We're looking, of course, for a large market and a technology that is aimed at solving a global challenge. So we don't want just to invest in companies that improve something. We really want our companies to to advance the industry, to advance humanity in general. So I can really say that the vast majority of our companies address global challenges in the clean tech sector. And of course, we're looking for a team that, even if they are first timers, and we are seed investors, so I'm sure that if Elon Musk founds a company, will not come to us. It's fine. So we're not necessarily looking for rock star entrepreneurs, but we are looking for entrepreneurs and teams that we can work with. So it's about it's also about specific personal chemistry. And I think it's a major success factor in a company, because a company is always some kind of a teamwork, and companies need to get along with their investors, with their boards. So we want to create a good, a conducive working and friendly environment with our companies.
Sounds really great, Anna. So maybe we invite Boaz. Shall I start with the video you've prepared? Is this okay for you?
Yes, thank you for that.
The electrical vehicle market is growing exponentially. By 2030, over 100 million EVs are expected to hit the road. This raises challenging energy, infrastructure, and economic issues. Think about this. Charging 10 EVs in 10 minutes altogether requires power infrastructure equivalent to powering a skyscraper. Infrastructure upgrade, which has enormous costs, takes a long time. To overcome these hurdles, local energy storage is added for grid support of fast charging. It's possible to use chemical batteries, but many charging cycles shorten their lifespan and require frequent replacements, making this a polluting and costly solution. CleanTech is addressing exactly these problems. Introducing an innovative charging technology based on its kinetic battery for unlimited high-power charging and discharging cycles. A solution that is both sustainable and economic. Module 1, Boost. Planning to install fast charging stations but the grid is too weak? CleanTech's kinetic power booster connects to any charger and enables you to do this anywhere you need. The power booster will provide you with at least 3 times the power. Module 2, Boost and Charge. Location owners planning to set up a high-power charging station? CleanTech's kinetic power charger, containing high-power booster and charger, is set up within days, without the need of upgrading existing infrastructure. Module 3, Boost, Charge, and Operate. CleanTech provides you a complete solution, including a kinetic power charger with managed service, enabling you to set up your own local micro-charging network, anywhere, anytime. CleanTech, boosting e-mobility, anywhere.
So Boaz, thanks for joining us. Maybe you start with a small update about your career and about your company.
Okay, first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I think I will try not to repeat a lot of what Anat just said. First of all, about myself, I'm actually a newcomer to this market of CleanTech, or let's say we call it sometimes green tech. Actually, go a bit back. I'm in my military service. I was a submarine chief engineer officer. Later on, had my degree for electrical engineering and started working as an R&D engineer. Later on, managed a startup company which actually tried to commercialize defense technology for commercial automotive market. That's really not, it's commercial automotive by means of safety and night vision capability. And following that, in the past 10 years, I was a VP at a defense company called Elbit Systems. Elbit is a significant defense technology company. And for 5 years, I managed the business lines of lasers and long-range thermal imaging equipment. And in the last almost 5 years, I was the VP R&D and engineering of a company called LOP, which is the leading one of the leading electro-optics company in the defense sector. And actually, through all this career, I always thought that I need to do something good also for the planet, and this green tech sector was always looked interesting and very something which is a big challenge, not only by technology but actually a challenge to all of us as humanity. So after this long career, most of all, the last part of it in the defense sector, I was looking for a new challenge. And happily, I just a couple of months ago, I joined CleanTech, which I think really tick a lot of the points that we discussed so far. Going to CleanTech, so you saw the movie. First of all, we believe that we are actually providing an enabling solution to a revolution that we all see at the verge of accelerating. The revolution of an EV cars or EV vehicles, I think it's obvious for everyone that this is the future, and we will see less and less internal combustion engine and the use of fossil fuels. And we'll see more and more electric vehicles. So one of the main challenges in this for this evolution is what is called the range anxiety. We are all familiar as of today, going into a gas station, filling the tank, and getting out of the gas station after a few minutes. This cannot happen with electrical vehicle, because you need a lot of power, a lot of electricity to fuel back the battery and allow significant range of driving. And as you saw in the video, the grid itself is not sufficient to allow this to actually support this requirement. And here we come with a sustainable and cost-effective solution, not based on chemical batteries like others are doing, but actually keeping the vision of a green planet, using a very sophisticated technology based on flywheel to convert electricity to kinetic energy, and having this energy stored and be ready once a vehicle is connected to our system. We are able to boost the grid and allow a very quick, fast charging of the vehicle.
So is the concept of storing the electricity in phases of low demand via having a kinetic storage system and using it to charge the electrical vehicle when it's needed?
It's not only in low demand. Actually, the charging of the kinetic energy is very quick. But it's if I'm trying to illustrate that, even if you have a very small wire of electricity going into the system, then for the vehicle, from the vehicle perspective, it doesn't matter how the grid is weak. We are able to boost the grid and provide a burst of energy in a very short time, converting back the kinetic energy to electricity going into the vehicle. The importance is,
sorry, but I'm also involved in a company which is realizing charging points all over Germany, and we have this ongoing discussion with the local grid operators. How do we get enough electricity to the certain charging points we are planning? It's not that it's not possible to get areas where you can install them. It's always the bottleneck is how strong is the local grid, and this is a fantastic solution to, let's say, boost the needed infrastructure for electric vehicles, which is supported, by the way, in Germany with, I guess now, 3 billion euros to get the transformation into electrical mobility much faster than, let's say, normal consumers by now wanted to do. So, Boaz, how is your cooperation with Capital Nature? Are they supporting you, and what kind of support is it?
Yes, we usually say that you never say good things of a person in front of him. So I have to ask Anna to go outside just to be able to talk freely. But first of all, as I mentioned, I just joined ChakroTech a few months ago. So first, I will start from my personal experience. I think it's a tremendous support, not only by Anat and her experience and advices, which are really great. The team that Anat mentioned before is very proactive. I'm relying a lot on their network and their capability of introducing me in a very quick and efficient way, relevant people that allow me to step into this challenge as quickly as possible and explore opportunities. And I think this is really, again, as a newcomer, this is really a great experience. Not only that, if I go a bit backwards and discuss the process of the company, ChakroTech actually started in the incubator of Capital Nature. So going back to the process that Anat just mentioned before, I think you need to be really a visionary to see the potential of those ideas and not very supported concepts, and see the potential in them and invest in this very early stage. So ChakraTech was born 7 years ago, and since then made several rounds. All of this period, capital nature, supporting those funding rounds and supporting the company, not only by money, but as I mentioned before, with the network and the experience and their ability to push the company forward. And we are now, you know, it wasn't in the movie, but the reason why I joined the company right now is because we already have 4 pilot programs in Europe, very successful. We are in the stage of going from a startup company to the commercialization and the go-to-market phase. And this is the reason why that's the reason why I actually joined the company, to take this forward. Started this a couple of months ago with a short interview with Anat, and very quickly she got me even more excited than I was before the interview, believing in this vision and actually being sure that the board of directors really support the company. Since then, I can tell you that it's even been better than what I thought. It looks very promising. I really admire and appreciate the support, and I think it will allow us to have a significant success later on.
So from our point, this is what we really like as approach of capital nature. Of course, you need equity injections, financing, but more important is to have this, how Anna says, this ecosystem or within a network that where you can be introduced. And this is why we are so happy that we can be part of capital nature in Europe, to help also the portfolio companies of capital nature by bringing them to more market participants to, let's say, prove their concepts and hopefully get first installations much faster than it would be possible if you develop it on your own. So one last question from the audience to you was current technology challenges for ChakraTech at the moment on the technology side.
Yes. So actually, I think maybe you will think I'm optimistic, but I think we are beyond the stage of the technology readiness. Okay, we are beyond the point of the proof of concept. We have made in the past year a significant leap forward with the new version of the flywheel that not only shows the proof of concept, but also show the roadmap for cost reduction. And again, this is why we believe, also based on the great feedback that we got from customers through these pilot programs, that it's now the time to go beyond the technology and introduce a product to the market. So we already have a prototype which is being tested by customers as pilot program, but really this breakthrough progress that we had a few months ago allow us to take the cost down and really build now the plans, the production plan and the marketing channels just to take this forward to commercialization phase.
This is really a great news for us. So which leads me to the question, Anna, can you tell us a little bit about your cooperation with the Israeli government? You've mentioned it in a few sentences in the beginning. Maybe that gives us here in Europe a better understanding how this new investment environment is so attractive, especially in Israel.
Yes, so like I said before, the government has taken and is still taking an active role in really assisting early stage startups to obtain financing by participating in financing of those startups, but doing it in a slightly different way than what we know is done in other countries. So instead of providing grants to the companies, so one of the programs, and the Israel Innovation Authority has many programs. By the way, the fact that this authority was created, because in the past it was part of the Ministry of Economy or the Ministry of Industry, whatever, this now quite autonomous authority that was created, I don't know, 10 years ago, is also part of the structure and the view of the government, and this is crossing any political differences that, as we know, exist in Israel. But on this, there is quite a consensus that this authority would be a budgeted, independent, professional authority. So the people that work there are people from the industry. These are people that were previously colleagues and will be colleagues. So this is quite a professional authority, and it's very important, I think, that it is one, independent, and secondly, professional, because it is really outside of any political considerations. So the program that I mentioned before is I think that is quite famous. It's the Israeli incubation program, where the government about 20 years ago came and said, actually it started in the 90s. We had a lot of immigration from former Soviet Union, Russia, and a lot of that immigration was very skilled technical people, engineers. So the incubation program started basically at the beginning just in order to create these in peripheral settlements in Israel, all across the country, which is not so big, but still, these incubators where these people could work on projects and technologies, and maybe something will come out of them. But very quickly, the people there, and I must say they were very visionary and very business oriented, they said this will never fly. We must connect it to the venture capital industry, to the multinationals. We must connect it to the startup ecosystem. And at the time, and even still today, an early stage startup has big difficulty to raise funds, except for the closed circles of the 3 Fs, as we call it. It's very difficult to attract investment from a professional investment. So by creating this incubation program, which basically, I won't go into details, I'm not sure we have time, but basically provides a matching of government funds to a private entity that owns the franchise on a specific incubator. So for example, when we set up Xenia or Capital Nature, we privatized an incubator. We came with a plan. We said, these are the sectors that we are going to invest. We finance the incubator. We come from the industry. We are connected to the ecosystem. And the government, they don't want any equity. They don't want to manage the companies. They don't want any involvement. But what they say, okay, on every project that you put, let's say, I don't know, a certain amount, let's say $200,000, we will match it times 6. But we're not taking equity in the company, so that you can enjoy, you as private sector, you can enjoy, you can negotiate with the company and assume the equity as if it's an entire $600,000 or $800,000 investment. And by
Anna,
that,
do you have to pay it back?
So okay, yeah. So this is a good question, because we're Israelis, so even the government, they want their money back. So at the beginning, it was a loan, which would be payable only if the company succeeds. So if the company succeeds, we would pay back the loan. If not, the government loses the funds. So this was acting as a risk, as a financial leverage, and as a risk mitigator. After a while, they changed the model because some companies reached sales and did not reach exits, and some loans were not repaid for various reasons. And they said, okay, we provide the grant, you don't have to give it back, we release you from giving it back. But if and when the company will have revenues, they will pay us back the grant up to 150%. From revenues, 3% every year, like any royalty, like any normal royalty agreement that you would see if you received I don't know if you would do a licensing agreement on a technology. So these are very normal terms. So that way, the company can be sold to a multinational, still pay back very slowly the grant, and that's it. And if the company doesn't reach sales, then the grant does not have to be repaid. So basically,
in the end, it's a liability of the target company where you as Capital Nature investing the government's money, that they are charged 3% of their revenues to pay back these governmental grants.
Yes, yes. At the end, it's a liability of the project company to pay it back, again, only if and when they have revenues, up to 100, it's not open-ended, up to 150% of the original grant.
So, and this is, let's say, additional acceleration. What's the track record of Capital Nature so far?
So Capital Nature, since its inception, invested in 13 companies, no, 15 companies, out of which we have today in our portfolio 9 companies. So basically 6 companies were closed, did not succeed, which is quite normal. 3 companies are publicly traded today at the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange at an overall cumulative valuation of over, I would say, it depends, and now the dollar rate is very low, but in shekel wise it's over 5 billion shekels, so it's around $1.5 billion. The last company we just took public a week ago, and it's doing very nicely. So overall returns up on everything that was invested in Capital Nature, we're around 10 times as of today.
Wow, what a great figure. So, and this is one of the reasons why we're proud that that we have established an exclusivity agreement that within our fund we are willing to invest a huge amount of money within our fund into the Capital Nature structure, and maybe also in some of their investment targets. And it's not only that the performance of your portfolio is so exciting, it's also that we have a strong belief in your approach by not offering only money, but supporting us with your deep knowledge of the industry and your network. And this is totally comparable to what we do also in the European market, where we've invested into artificial intelligence to supervise solar plants, where we became so client number 0. It's not that we've only invested into the company, it's also that we helped them to gather experience and to accelerate their development, and to become their first client, to also show to the market this platform does work. And this is what you're doing in the Israeli market. So we are really, really proud that we have established this relationship. So one last question: how do you see Capital Nature in 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I think we're in a good position today to be a leading player here in Israel in the areas of clean tech and green technologies. So we really started out in the narrow renewable energy sector, and then we developed into the sectors that are adjacent to the sector, which include the smart transportation and energy efficiency, a lot of the sectors that you have on the map. And we are increasing our reach and collecting more deal flow. And I think that 5 years from now, Capital Nature will have, we are an evergreen model. We're not a fund, so we are an investment company. So we will have on one hand some successful realizations of our more mature companies, and we will be able to provide returns to our investors, which are, by the way, prominent Israeli companies like Elbit and Rafael and large family office based in the UK, and then fund the next generation of startup companies that we see all the time, and we select very carefully and work with them and bring them to maturity. So this is what we love doing, and we will continue to be doing that.
So investing in clean tech is a really amazing sector, and the outlook is quite promising. And I hope that you will follow your performance you achieved over the last decade also for the next decade? And one last question to you, Boaz, when are you planning to go public?
This is the question that is always difficult to answer. So you will have to wait. It's always you have to wait patiently and see for yourself. We certainly believe in our success. This is one of the routes that we evaluate, but too early to discuss the details.
But it's in the cards.
It's in the cards. You're right.
Anna, this is a typical exit for your portfolio companies at the moment, trying to get them listed?
Look, at the moment, and this is always, this is always something that changes periodically. At the moment, the Israeli public market is very, very conducive to finance tech companies, and specifically in the green tech areas. So other than Electrion and Ogwind and Blade Ranger that just went public in our portfolio, there have been some other successful IPOs of green tech companies, not only from our portfolio, but it's a widespread trend that is going on now. For us, the public market is yes, it is an opportunity to show value up to the investors, but it's also a very good way, first of all, to raise a significant amount of capital that all of these companies need in order to become truly global companies. They need significant amount of capital, and I think that it also creates visibility. It generates the possibility for the wider public to be invested in those companies. So I see many other advantages in this strategy of public markets, and not just to be confined to VC investments. Of course, there are some disadvantages, not for today's panel to discuss, but generally, I think that the companies, it's a very good route for the companies. And yes, if it creates value to the investors, that's always a nice bonus.
Okay, so thank you, Arnold and Boaz, for joining today's webinar. We've prepared an additional information for all participants, which we will send you after the webinar, and I hope you agree on the fantastic future for CleanTech investments, especially if you have strategic partners like Arnold and her team with Capital Nature, where you can invest in if you invest into our CleanTech fund. And I would like you to discuss this opportunity with me and my colleagues, hopefully over the next days. So thank you very much. And this is my gift for all of you. A few days before Christmas, the webinar was planned for 1 hour. So this is an 8-minute coffee break within your schedule. Use it carefully and hopefully come back with a lot of questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.